This is Patriots Playbook.
The legend.
Our camera person just jumped off the train, right? Wow. Those that have heard this are already going, oh, here he goes again. I think Keon White is a legitimate candidate for Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Oh, wow. That's not...
You think that's a good one?
It's big, bold.
Leeds didn't like it. 22 years of doing a radio show. Now it's a television show, too.
Well, how do you feel about it? Do you like it?
It's fine.
Now, here's your host of Patriots Playbook, John Rook.
It's fine. We're all fine today. We're just fine. There's nothing wrong here. There's nothing going on here. We're all fine.
It's a pretty good way to describe things around here.
Fine
right
is
now.
a good thing.
It's fine.
You know, it's not perfect,
It's not great. It's fine.
but it's fine.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Welcome in. Week 2. It's the 2022 regular season. This is Patriots Playbook for a Wednesday. John Rook. Evan Lazar is here for the opening half hour of the program. To be followed today by the one and only Ben Volen of the Boston Globe. Armando Salguero, who is a longtime friend of the show, has been for over 20 years. Been a longtime beat writer for the Miami Dolphins, now covers the NFL as an insider for Outkick, and he's going to join us at the first of the second hour to talk Dolphins, ostensibly, because he's still pretty clued in around there. Do you know Armando very well?
I don't know him personally, but I've always followed him for the Dolphins.
He's a good dude. And he's a really good reporter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A
So
little bit of Mike Reese.
yes.
A little Mike Reese.
He's got a little Mike Reese in him. He
Yeah.
absolutely does. That's a
Yeah.
very good comparison.
Yep.
And then, of course, Russell Baxter will join us for Week 2 around the NFL and look back a little bit at Week 1. Look, I'm left with a couple of overall impressions from Week 1, and I know that you took some heat on social media over the last couple of days. First of all, I'm going to stick up for you for a minute, because the one thing I love about having you with this program, Evan, is that we don't have to agree to get along.
That's true.
Okay? Sometimes, I make the veins bulge out on your head, which is fine. I understand that. But, the one thing that I loved last week when Mac Jones gave you crap for, being the offensive coordinator, if you will, or whatever it was for the Patriots, I love that, because that tells me that they know you pay attention.
Yeah, I know you like to talk about the scheme, so.
Right?
I tried.
You do like to talk about the scheme.
I do. That's my favorite thing to talk about.
Talk about the scheme.
Yeah,
right. Okay.
absolutely.
And I enjoy that too. I actually enjoy a lot of the nitty-gritty nuts and bolts, because I am somewhat of a football nerd like you are. Now, what do I know? I came from running a wishbone offense, so what the hell do I know? But I would tell you that, I see a lot more in pro football today that I really enjoy watching, like I used to watching college football decades ago, because of the RPO. Where the quarterback has the option to do several things, and because that's what I always did, and I never kept the ball. I either handed it off or I pitched. So, look, I know you caught some flack because I'm guessing just from listening to you guys a little bit earlier, but mostly reading your stuff, because I'm like, why is everybody hating on Evan today? And I'm kind of like, I get it. Because you told the truth.
Oh, no.
Or what you thought was the truth.
Yeah.
Your interpretation of the truth.
It's
And we have a lot of people here, Ev. We have a lot of people here. And look, this is Patriots.com radio, okay? This is Patriots Playbook as a program. And so people expect us to talk Patriots, and what's good about the team, and can they beat the Dolphins, and rah, rah, rah. Okay. There is a certain element to everything we do here that has pom-pom waving. Right?
Yeah.
There just is. Outside media, we're the quote-unquote dreaded team media, which sort of is criticized by what we would call regular media outside of team media, because they feel like, we're in the tank for the team that we cover, or we're protecting so-and-so, or we're, saying one thing when reality really is another. And I get that. But I'm going to reiterate this, because I usually say this once or twice a year. I just told you this off the air before we started. When we first started this venture of Patriots.com radio in 2000, okay, one of the things that Jonathan Kraft had said to us at the time is that, look, we understand you're going to need to be critical of the team from time to time, okay? It can't work right if you're all raving pom-poms all the time. If something's not going well, you have the right to talk about that. Now, do we want anybody thrown under the bus needlessly? No. Do we want you, giving away, insights from secrets in the hallways? No. And we don't do that. And I think we're very respectful of football operations around here, and we're very respectful of the outside media coming in, because many of us came, by the way, let me reiterate here, most of us came from outside media before we came inside. I did.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so we're doing it a little bit differently, but it doesn't mean we've forgotten our basic principles of telling what we believe are the rights and the wrongs and the truths more than anything else. We're not leaving this, we're not towing the company line, so to speak, although, hey, it's great when the Patriots win. Well, we won't lie to you. It's great when they win, and we've had a lot of winning over the last 20, 23 years. But we're here to tell you the truth. We're not here to shake a pom-pom to your face.
Yeah.
And I guess that's really where you were coming from. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm guessing that's the interpretation I got by reading some of your social media.
Yeah, I think it's twofold. One, and I'm not telling fans how to fan. You fan the way you want to fan.
Absolutely.
If you want to have optimism and you want to look at the bright side of things and look at the positives, I am not going to tell you that you're wrong or tell you not to do that. But my whole thing is that at what point with this football team are we allowed to flip a switch from saying they're in a rebuild to the window is now open for them to start contending for championships? And I'm not saying that my expectation level is that they win a Super Bowl this year. There's a difference between Super Bowl aspirations and contending.
Yeah.
Contending means that you are in the hunt. You are a playoff team that is in the hunt.
Right.
At what point, post-Brady, and we're now in year 4,
at what point do we get back to actual contention?
And at what point is it fair to criticize the fact that we are not getting there faster, sooner?
This is why last year was such a complete abomination, because they took a huge step back. It's almost like last year now. We got to go back 2 years almost now, because last year was a complete zero across the board. Now, I don't think Bill Belichick will ever issue the mea culpa for last year. He tried something. It failed. Is he going to ever own up to it? Well, maybe in the book someday. But that set this franchise back, in my opinion. And it certainly set us back talent-wise. It set us back effort-wise. It set us back perception-wise.
Yeah.
And so we're actually, even though this is 2023, we're actually at the start of 2022, in my way of thinking, post-Tom Brady era. So we got to go back in the Wayback Machine here and catch up a little bit.
I think that's fair from a player development standpoint, specifically looking at the quarterback.
Yes.
I think that's fair. But from a roster building perspective, in my opinion, offensively, I will not say a bad word about the defense. The defense, I thought, played great on Sunday.
I did too.
I thought the film backed it up.
Yep.
I thought they played really well. I thought they were really prepared.
My boy Keon White's on his way.
Keon White, I thought that they had a couple of wrinkles defensively that we haven't seen before to stop mobile quarterback elements and things like that. A really good defensive performance that gives you a foundation to now be like, all right, this defense this year can play and go up against a Jalen Hurts and play, not go up against Sam Ehlinger and play, or Zach Wilson, but go toe-to-toe with elite, good offense. And that's great. Offensively, my concern remains the same, and that is that it looks better with Bill O'Brien. Mac Jones looks better. He looks more in rhythm. He looks more poised. He looks more, his decision making and where his eyes are going makes sense and are sound and all that kind of stuff. And the schemes that they are running in the passing game are better than what they were last year. But because of the roster building issues that they've had specifically at the skill positions, but also on the offensive line, they still don't have top-end talent. They still don't have elite talent.
Got a ways to go still in building the roster.
Yeah.
We agree on this.
And what it ends up happening is that you have a quarterback, in my opinion, who, like any quarterback, has his limitations. And they need the execution, play in and play out, to be at such a high level for them to score 30, 35 points in a game, 26 points in a game like on Sunday. They need the execution to be at a very, very, very high level because the quarterback is not a big-time playmaker individually. He's not mobile. He's not a second reaction over play extension type of quarterback that's going to play playground football and make plays. He needs help. And they don't have the quarterback is who he is, and they don't have receivers that are game breakers. Which
is why I think, and correctly so, we would have all been happy to see someone like, if not exactly DeAndre Hopkins come in, or someone that could be a receiver that could take pressure off away from others to allow them one-on-one opportunities to do actually what they all do pretty well. But we don't have that option.
Yeah.
You're still not maximizing the talents. The way that I look at these Patriots, you're still not maximizing the talent that can best support Mac Jones and what he can do.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and I think that's my whole thing. Is just when you look at this offense, there's nothing particularly explosive about the Patriots offense. They don't have a quarterback with a huge arm. They don't have receivers that are explosive big play receivers. And when you watch this Miami team, for example, on tape, they have two guys in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle that can take a 5-yard slant and take it 65 yards to the house. And as good as Tua played against the Chargers on Sunday, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Tua, but as good as Tua played on Sunday, the bottom line is that he's got two thoroughbreds at the receiver position that just do a lot of the work for him and make it easier for him to make big plays. So Miami, early on in this game, fumbled, like right out of the gate. They drove down the field and they fumbled inside the opponent's red zone, inside the Chargers' red zone. Later in the game, J.C. Jackson had an interception in this game. So they had two turnovers off also. They scored 36 points because they're able to overcome those turnovers because all it takes is one play for Tyreek Hill to house one from 50 yards out. The Patriots don't have that luxury. So these issues that happen and these mistakes that happen, they have a domino effect on them, and it makes it harder and harder for them to go out there and score a lot of points because they can't overcome the miscues. And that, to me, is more about roster building, but I also think you have to accept the fact that what you currently have from a personnel standpoint is what it is, and it isn't enough. And that's where my critiques of Mac Jones have come in, is because he isn't bad. I am not telling you that he stinks. I'm not telling you that he should be benched. I am just telling you he is who he is. And they are asking him to really make the supporting cast a lot better than I think it's fair to ask him to do, based off of his talent level. That'll make it worse.
Okay,
but that's the bottom line. I think people think that I was overly critical of Mac. Maybe I was, but it wasn't what I was trying to articulate. Is this is reason X, Y, and Z that Mac Jones is not that he's not the answer, but it's just this is what holds him back from being an elite quarterback.
He's just not surrounded with the kind of talent that you would expect a contending team to really be, full of the gills with. I mean, that's kind of how I look at it.
It's been shocking.
It's been a process ever since TB12 left town.
In 2019, Brady already, in 18 too, but in 19 and 18, Brady already started feeling the lack
Which
of
is one of the reasons why he
him.
left. We know this.
Yeah.
He wanted to go someplace where he could win, and obviously he did that.
Yeah.
So we still haven't addressed the bigger picture here. Now, it's slowly getting better. I would tell you that the fact that the one thing that I was left overwhelmingly with following Sunday's game was 11 rookies dressed.
Yeah.
11 rookies dressed. That's better than a fifth of your roster.
Yeah. I always temper expectations for rookies because we'll see what they become, right? It's one game, and you can't possibly judge any of the rookies that played on Sunday based off of one game.
Okay. Yeah.
But I still think that in some respects that speaks to the point I've been trying to make the last couple days, is that in that spot on fourth down with the game on the line, he had to throw the ball to Kayshon Boutte.
And that's still something that was really never, I don't think, sufficiently answered by anybody this week. why Booty was in the game as opposed to Juju.
Right.
And is it because Juju's hurt? Well, if he's hurt, then somebody's got to – I mean, they don't want to say something, but clearly then these guys have made a fundamental miscalculation.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Devontae Parker is out. He's not dressed. You have really no depth behind Devontae Parker for that outside X role. And so you're in week 1 against the defending NFC champions, and the guy that you have to put out there is a rookie that was drafted in the 6th round and has never played a game in the NFL before.
That's why I almost don't blame him for not getting the double.
I don't blame him. I don't.
Although he's supposed to know that, but I almost don't blame him. Look, Devontae Parker has to learn the greatest ability in pro football is availability. And I'm fastly, is that a word? Rapidly.
There you go.
Okay.
I don't know if fastly is a word.
Losing faith in his ability.
Yeah, that's a bummer. And look, I think that for this team, Devontae Parker's a difference maker because we saw it on Sunday. Not only was it the 4th down play at the end of the game that maybe Devontae Parker makes that catch. Mm-hmm. I think he probably could make that catch. Mm-hmm. But the back shoulder to Booty earlier in the game on 3rd down, he definitely makes that. I've seen Devontae Parker make that catch a dozen times.
It's almost routine for him. That's why they went and got him. Hello?
Right. So that's his ball, right? That's his catch.
Sure.
That's his play. So for this football team, we just talked about the big picture of their talent level on offense, but for the Patriots roster in 2023, Devontae Parker is a big-time difference maker for them because they don't really have another outside receiver that can win on the perimeter. And Kayshon Boutte, the reason why I absolve him of all of this is because, A, that's a really tough spot to put a rookie in his first NFL game in, but B, he's not really an outside receiver. Kayshon Boutte at LSU played more of like that Kendrick Bourne, Juju Smith-Schuster role of like a Z or a slot, someone that was playing more inside the formation. He is a catch-and-run player. We saw it in Green Bay in the preseason. That slant and
that's putting him at his optimum.
That's Kayshon Boutte.
Yeah.
Kayshon Boutte toe-tapping the sideline, that's not his game. So I don't blame him for it at all. The reason why he was out there is because they lack depth at the receiver position on the outside. They got plenty of inside guys. Like, they got inside guys up the wazoo. It's the outside guys that they really lack depth at. And it comes back to, like you said, that DeAndre Hopkins was out there for them to have. There's other guys.
Had your outside guy. I'm almost getting to the point where I understand completely why Bill thinks the way he does. Well, so-and-so isn't here, so we're not talking about him. Devontae Parker, Tyquan Thornton, they're not here. They're not available. I don't want to talk about them.
Yeah, and Tyquan is another, not to pile on, but with Tyquan, in reality, that Tyquan was drafted to be that player.
Yep.
That was why he was drafted, and they drafted him in 22, and they end up really having to give that role to Devontae Parker because Tyquan didn't take the bull by the horns and wasn't able to play that role the way they thought he was going to. And now you have this domino effect. And I think this is what's plagued this team since they've gotten themselves stuck into this rut.
I had friends from Baylor tell me, watching Tyquan play there, said he's really fast, but he's really thin.
Yeah.
So we always question whether or not he would have NFL capabilities because he's just not thick.
Yeah.
He doesn't have size. He's just thin. He's skinny. And that's going to leave him susceptible to potential injury. And guess what? Hello.
IR 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
To start the year. Yeah. Look, that's my whole thing. I don't think Mac stinks. I don't think that Mac is the biggest problem about this offense. But what I do think is that Mac needs help. More help than they have given him, and I don't think that they ride the roller coaster week in and week out of pick six, fumble, back-to-back touchdown drives, 3 and out, this up and down roller coaster because there's a lot on the quarterback's shoulders. He is expected to be perfect every time he drops back to pass because he has to make the right reads, he has to put the ball in the right place, and he has to go 1,000 paper cuts down the field. The only quarterbacks that I've seen be able to be that precise all the time are like the greats, like a Tom Brady, a Drew Brees, a Peyton Manning, right? Like those types of guys. Asking Mac to do that is ridiculous.
First, it's unfair to put him in that position. Second of all, without weapons, come on.
Yeah. So
Come on.
all
Yeah,
that's all
that
I'm
would be
saying.
a task for Tom. That'd be a task
Right.
for Peyton Manning.
Yeah,
That'd be a
yeah.
task for anybody.
The margin for error in this offense is thin. And so when they have a drop or they go have a negative play or they have turnovers early in the game and they have to overcome those things, they don't have the firepower to just make up for it.
Even like, for instance, a 16-0 deficit.
Yeah.
And
And that's why you can get close, because you can string a couple good drives together, but you can't string 4 or 5 good drives together to get it over the top.
That's the issue. So I guess that's really kind of what I'm overwhelmingly left with this last week. It's kind of like, wow, they had their shots at the end, which is actually impressive. And I am not one for moral victories. But do I think that there's something they can build off of? Well, sure. Is there something that they can correct that can make them immediately better? Abso-freaking-lutely. Stop shooting yourself in the foot. You know, the penalties, of which there were several key penalties that rubbed out gains, the dropped footballs that I mentioned.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, guys, it's the same thing as it was last year. That destroyed last year's team was the self-inflicted wounds.
The turnovers are a big problem.
It's awful.
The question is, are they committing turnovers because they're in over their heads? And they're pressing, and they're trying to.
If it were rookies alone, I would say maybe. But this isn't rookies we're talking about.
Right.
I mean, we saw Hunter Henry for that great one-handed catch he had in the fourth quarter. He dropped a couple of balls.
He dropped one, but he would have been like 5 yards short of the first down.
Okay. Nevertheless, it was still a drop pass.
The 2 big drops were by Juju. That one was
the Juju drop
in the flat. And there was one more that
Kendrick Bourne had the one that hit him in the hands that was hit for a pick 6.
Yeah, I mean, that was a bad pass.
I have always been of the opinion, ball hits you in the hands, you got to catch it.
I mean, that was a bad pass.
It wasn't a great pass.
He's not 7 feet tall.
Could it have been a better pass? Yes. But he got his hands on it. His hands were on it, and it slipped through. Now, whether or not that was because it was wet, maybe. You can't use that as an excuse.
Yeah.
And we saw Julian Edelman out, when it was raining. He had, trainers when he was here wetting the ball and then throwing it to him at impossible angles. These are things that guys have to practice on.
It's such a good example, though, of like what I'm talking about with Mac, because on that particular play, take the throw and the ball placement out of it for a second, which it wasn't a well-thrown pass, right? It was up over Kendrick Bourne's head. That was one of those plays where Mac really threw it too quickly. Mm-hmm. He was rushed on the throw. And he's got Gesicki working up the seam on like a little shake route, right? And then he's got Kendrick Bourne sitting down underneath the route, and you're really just making like a read of who gets covered in that situation. And he doesn't allow the play the time to develop. And so Kendrick Bourne is coming out of his break, and the ball's already on him. So now, on top of the fact that the ball was up here, he turns around and he's got to make this instant reaction to this high pass, and just instinctually he puts his hand up to try to catch the ball, and we saw what happened. So normally you would say, like, no, I shouldn't say normally. For some quarterbacks, you make that mistake, and you drive down the field the next possession, and you get the points back, right? For this offense, that little detail of Mac rushing that throw to Kendrick Bourne and having it sail a little bit over Kendrick Bourne's head, for this offense, that turns into a pick 6 the other way and a 16-0 deficit. That's the issue, is that that's such a little detail of timing in the passing game that it, for them, gets blown up into this big deal because of just the situation that they're in. And I keep on reiterating, I thought he looked better than he did last year, certainly. I think the offense is well organized. I think it's well coached. I think that they have good concepts. Mm-hmm. I think that there's a lot of really positive things to take away from it. But if a pick 6 in the first quarter is going to put you in a hole that you can't get out of, then it's going to be a long season. Like that's just the reality, because the expectation that everything's going to go perfect all the time is unachievable.
Which leads us to this week. So before we let you go,
Yeah.
we flip forward now to Miami, and obviously the Dolphins had a tremendous offensive performance in scoring 36 points, and Tua was AFC Offensive Player of the Week for his performance last week. He's got that missability, as I call it, in the backfield where he can make you look really bad if you bring in the heat, and of course if you bring the heat and he makes you look bad, then there are fewer people that can defend guys like Waddle and Hill in the secondary, and then that's when those, you talked about it earlier, those 50 and 60-yard pass plays come into play.
Yeah.
So this is quite the challenge, but I thought the Patriots defended Jalen Hurts better than I initially expected them to last week.
Yeah, he was rattled in that game.
So that tells me a little bit. Now, I would also allow that maybe Philly's offense was a little rusty because nobody played in the preseason. But this is not the case with Miami this week. So I think this is a unique challenge. Is it too early? Is it ridiculous to say it's must win on Sunday?
I think it's too early to say it's must win. I think it's a big game because not only do you want to feel better about yourself with a win just in general, but it's also a divisional game early in the year. So I think that's big. It's a big week 2 game. Is it I can't really say must win in week 2, but it's a big game for week 2.
It's as big, I think, as a week 2 game can possibly be.
Yeah, I think,
especially if you're the team that's 0-1.
I think that's fair. You mentioned the receivers. The Dolphins' offense last week generated 17 explosive plays. 17.
And explosive, let's define that.
15-plus yards.
15 plus, okay.
So 17 15-plus yard plays last week. The next closest team was the San Francisco 49ers, which is not a coincidence. 2 very similar offenses. They only had 10. So they had 7 more than the field last week just on their own. Now, people are going to hear that and they're going to say, well, Evan, the Chargers defense stinks, right? And there's certainly some element to that is absolutely true.
Right.
But I think with this Miami offense, what they do, I personally, for my money, this might be the most well-orchestrated offense in the entire National Football League for the way that they utilize their personnel. They know they have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. They know they have 2 4-2-5 receivers, and they have every bell and whistle in the book to get those guys up the field in single coverage. They use motion, they use play action, they use misdirection. They do a ton.
They're very
of
creative.
Stuff. Very creative.
All right, so Mr. Offensive Coordinator.
Yes.
Because you're going to be our playbook offensive coordinator. What does New England do to keep the ball out of their hands?
So I think there's some element of that as well. And they're going up against this Fangio defense. Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator of the Dolphins, who's a very well-respected DC around the league. His system is really starting to take over the league. It really is. I mean, the Eagles run his system. A couple of other teams do as well. The thing about the Fangio system is, though, it's twofold. One is related strictly to Miami. They completely overhauled their defensive system by hiring Vic Fangio. So their defensive coordinator last year was Josh Boyer, who is a former Patriot assistant and was on Brian Flores' staff with the Dolphins. They decided to hold on to Brian Flores' assistant, Josh Boyer, and keep him as the DC last year in the first year under McDaniel. So Boyer ran a Flores Patriots defense, man coverage, blitz man, some cover 3 zone sprinkled in. Fangio is a zone demon. He runs zone coverage. He runs a lot of 2-high zone coverage, cover 4, cover 6, things like that. It could not be. It's apples to oranges. So I think the one advantage the Patriots have in this game is that last week against the Chargers, who scored 34 points and really moved the ball really well, there looked like there was a lot of growing pains in the defense for the Miami defense. They're still learning the system. It's pretty obvious. Their run fits weren't great. They gave up a lot of yards on the ground. They have trouble with assignments, bunches, stack formations, motion. How are we going to handle all these different things? Mm-hmm. So if I was the Patriots and I was Bill O'Brien, I would throw a bunch of mental issues at the Miami Dolphins defense, right? We're going to motion, we're going to have RPO, we're going to put you in a mental pretzel because you don't really feel so sure about your assignments on every single play. We can see that on film, that you guys aren't all confident in where you're supposed to be. So we're going to play into that. The other thing I think with this Fangio scheme, and this is where the Patriots found success against the Eagles, who run a very similar defense, is you can pick apart the underneath part of the field against this team. You can, because their whole defense is designed to play two high safeties and to take away the deep throws down the field.
Yeah.
So you can play, for lack of a better term, you can play dink and dunk football against a Fangio defense.
Which is ostensibly what you think you might actually do best.
Yes. And that combination of basically using the pass game as like an extension of the run game and maybe being able to run on some of the lighter boxes if you have your offensive lineman back, that combination could allow the Patriots to possess the ball a little bit in this game and speak to your point.
You mentioned offensive lineman. Obviously, Trent Brown was not at practice today.
Yes.
That's not a good step in the right direction, especially if you have Strange and Owenu who are still out.
Yeah, not a good step in the right direction at all. I think you're looking at Vidarian Lowe or Tyrone Wheatley, one of the new guys moving in.
Shot.
But I'm not too worried about Trent Brown. I would say that with Trent, we've watched them really manage him all summer long in terms of his longevity. He's a veteran guy. He's been in the league a while, played a ton of snaps. I think this is probably going to come out as some sort of veteran rest, type of day for him. So I'm not too concerned about that. But I said it on PU. I am reserving final judgment about this offense until we see the guards out there.
All right, so we'll call Evan the OC, not the OG. He's the OC. Okay.
I'm the Grinch now, apparently. That's what I'm calling myself.
The Grinchy OC.
Yeah.
Evan might as well be the offensive coordinator or something.
I like it. Thank you, Coach Lazar. Appreciate your time, as always. At EZ Lazar. You know that already. You've followed him already on Twitter, so you know that. All right, let's move now to Ben Volan, who covers the Patriots for the Boston Globe. Hey, Ben, thanks for taking some time today, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So let's kind of pick up with where I just kind of left it all with Evan a little bit, because there were some things that you had to admire, that you had to like a little bit. I mean, things seemed more together, more organized, especially on the offensive side of the ball for the Patriots last week, but they still dug themselves too big a hole. I mean, 16-0, especially against a team that's Super Bowl caliber, is usually insurmountable, and yet this team had an opportunity to actually surmount it. What are your thoughts as you look back over it for the last couple of days?
Yeah, I'd say like the middle 35 minutes of the game were really solid for the Patriots, where they showed good fight from coming back from 16-0. Mac Jones, I thought, showed really good pocket presence and awareness and kind of moving around and finding his guys. And to throw for 300 yards in his first game with this Bill O'Brien offense, really nice starting point. Defense, you got to love how they clamped down on the Eagles. That said, it was a awful start and a tough finish where they weren't able to capitalize on their opportunities on offense. So, those are you can't afford. The Patriots are not a team that can afford to keep going down 16-0, and that's kind of been their MO the last few years. When they fall down early, they don't usually have enough firepower to come back. So, and then, Mac Jones and the offense, I think, still needs to prove that they can execute in the fourth quarter and that they can, when the game's on the line, make the plays that they have to. I think Mac, so overall, you have to be pretty pleased with the way that Mac and the offense looked, and just there was a lot of bad football on Sunday across the league.
Yeah, there was.
So Mac and the Patriots looked halfway decent against a very good defensive line with the Eagles. And as you said, a team that is probably going to be competing for the Super Bowl again. The only other issue is that this was an Eagles team. I know they made the Super Bowl, but this was week one, and they barely played any football during the preseason.
Right.
They had every other day was an off day during training camp. None of the starters played any snaps. They were just getting their feet wet, and they still kind of, took care of business against the Patriots last week.
That's a little concerning, and that is taking it a little bit deeper, beyond just the surface, which, frankly, we have to do. And so I had asked Evan, and I realized that this is probably going to be a lot of the scuttlebutt throughout the course of the week, here, locally. But, for a Week 2 game, this is probably as must-win as you're probably going to find anywhere else in the league, isn't it? For the Patriots, anyway.
We don't want to start 0-2. It's not a death knell by any stretch. They're still a lot of football left after that, and especially having the 7th playoff team,
Yep.
I think keeps you alive for most of the season. This is a Patriots team. We've seen it time and again where, they struggle a little bit in September and they really find their groove in October and November. Even in Mac's rookie season, I think they had that 7-game win streak. So, you'd hate to put too much pressure on this game, but it is a division game, which is huge. And obviously with this unfortunate Aaron Rodgers news, the season opens up a lot more for the Patriots.
Yeah.
Now, those Jets games are much more winnable. The division is much more wide open, I'd say. So, yes, absolutely, this is a game that the Patriots, you'd hate to go into an 0-2 hole to start the season. You really don't want to lose these division games, which have so much at stake for the postseason. But, honestly, I really think adding that 7th playoff team really it does a good job of keeping teams kind of in it through the end. So I would hate to put too much on this game on Sunday.
I was not a huge proponent on Aaron Rodgers really turning the Jets around. I thought they'd be a playoff contender, maybe, kind of like the Patriots are a playoff contender, but I wasn't buying into, at least yet, the whole Jets are a Super Bowl team, hubbub. And nobody wants to see anybody get hurt. And when he went down watching the game, I snickered just because I know I have a bunch of fans. I have a bunch of friends who are Jets fans, and they're all a bunch of sad sacks anyway, and they love to play up to that. But now that he's down, how much does this really help the other teams in the division?
I think it helps a lot, to be honest. They went out on Thursday night and they beat the Bills, even after Aaron Rodgers suffers.
Okay, great point. Great point. They came back and won without him.
Yeah, and they beat Josh Allen, and that defense might be the best defense in the NFL. They are fast and aggressive, all 3 levels. They have star players. Quinnen Williams is just an absolute monster in the middle. That guy is a problem. Their offense, Garrett Williams, what a touchdown catch that he made. Breece Hall breaking out for an 83-yard run.
Yeah, Breece Hall's a stud.
With Aaron Rodgers,
yep.
I think the Jets, that performance just underscored how talented that team was. Mm-hmm. And I was confident that Rodgers was going to make them a top contender. And I think that performance only cemented it in my belief. They were going to be a real team to watch for the Super Bowl with him. And now they're back to the pack. It's Zach Wilson, and you got to think they're going to add a veteran, whether it's Colt McCoy or Nick Foles or Matt Ryan, someone who can just kind of check them into the right play and
Tom Brady.
make a few throws per game. Yeah, I don't know about Tom Brady, but if there were any other team than the Jets, maybe. But probably, I can't imagine him going to the Jets.
No, I think that would be one way. Ruin a legacy 101. Go to the Jets. Oh, my God. Hey, I think Bill Parcells did that, didn't he? And he still hadn't been able to get over it because they can't even get Bill Parcells into the Patriots Hall of Fame.
Well, that's true. That is a good point. But I think people would forgive Tom for doing it.
Yeah, I suppose. All right, so I think it does open it up a little bit, certainly to an extent. Time will only tell how much it really opens it back up. And then you got a game in the division this week, and it's at home, and so you don't want to be 0-1 in the division. You don't want to be 0-2 at home to start the season. And I think from just an overall mental aspect, that puts enough pressure on this week's game. But it's hard to have success when you know your best foot forward can't be placed. And by that I mean you're still shooting yourself in the foot with injuries and with mistakes, with turnovers. And I saw a couple of things I think on reported earlier today that La'el Collins was let go by the Cincinnati Bengals, and I'm wondering if that might not be a real consideration for the Patriots, considering some of the issues they're having on the offensive line.
Yeah, I think they're always looking for reinforcements, and especially I think at offensive tackle, they're kind of flailing a little bit. Riley Reif, his injury hasn't been well-timed, and I don't know how well he was playing before that.
Right.
I think Mike Onwenu, they'd rather put him at guard instead of right tackle.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'd rather not have to use Calvin Anderson was a left tackle in Denver. Him playing on the right side is new for him. That said, the offensive line held up decently last week. They kept Mac Jones relatively clean, and especially in the first half. I don't think Mac Jones was touched once in the first half in that game against the Eagles. So offensive line, it's really more about just finding the right 5 guys and getting them work together and trying to keep them in the lineup week in and week out. So La'el Collins, to me, a veteran who becomes available, you got to look into it. But for the Patriots, it's about just minimizing these mistakes and not shooting themselves in the foot in the first quarter, especially.
Yeah, that's just
can't come out. This is not a team. This isn't Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. They can't afford 16-0 deficit.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue more than anything else. And I felt like that's why the Patriots ultimately couldn't overcome the Eagles last week, because they just dug too big a hole. Now, Miami presents an entirely different scenario. They're quick, they're fast, they're speedy. They got guys that can take it to the to the end zone on any given play. It's another supreme challenge defensively. But the way that I look at it, it almost plays into what the Patriots do best, which has traditionally been to game plan for the opponent. They actually seem, and again, this is just 1 week of observation, but they seem like they could be a versatile enough defense to where game planning for an opponent is exactly a strength for this team. Whether or not they want to play 4 safeties, or whether or not they want to play 5 defensive backs, cornerbacks, or whether or not they want to play 2 or 3 linebackers, or whatever they want to do, they can mix and match parts because they have some versatility on the defensive side of the ball in order to match up with the personnel groupings from the opposing team. Does this Patriots defense, with the players that they have, the players that we know, the players that we've seen, can they match up with Miami's speed?
With their speed, it's I don't know if any defense can match up with the Dolphins' speed. It's can they neutralize it? And, yeah, I think the Patriots, frankly, they neutralized A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith pretty well last week. And I would expect a lot more zone coverage. I think that was a big part of the game plan last week, just try to keep everything in front of you.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill is going to try to break one deep. But you can't focus on him. Jalen Waddle is just as dangerous. And you go back and look at Waddle's numbers last year. He averaged 18 yards per catch. He had a ton of explosive plays. Those 2 guys on the same line of scrimmage, that's really dangerous stuff. And so I think you'll just see a lot more deep zone coverage. Give the Dolphins all the underneath stuff in the world and just, hope that your safeties and Juwan Bentley and those guys can make the tackles in the open field. I think the Patriots did a good job of really neutralizing Jalen Hurts and that Eagles offense last week, and not giving up the big play, and that's crucial this time. They can't give up the big play. Last year they played the Dolphins early in the season, and Tua played, and it was only 20-7 Dolphins. Yep. So they actually minimized Tua early in the season last year. So I think they can do it. It's just, you can't play man-to-man with these guys. Their speed, to me, is just, you have Jonathan Jones on one side, and he's obviously very fast, but I just don't see how man coverage would work against these guys.
I don't either.
Got to do a lot of deep zone.
Yeah, I don't either. I think you're exactly right. I'm not sure any team in the NFL can hang with these guys man to man. That's a big concern, and I'm sure it's going to keep some of the Patriots players and coaches up. One final one for you, Ben, and I know you wrote this earlier this week, but overall, I thought last week, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, we saw some real struggles, with the football on Sunday in Week 1. Overall, offenses just didn't seem to be quite as efficient as maybe we're used to seeing them. Is that a byproduct of Week 1, or is that more sort of a trend of the way the game might be heading? Because we know in life, all things are cyclical, and yes, in football, all things are cyclical. Might we be moving back to where, defense actually is important in pro football?
I wouldn't go that far now. I still think it's going to be an offensive game. You look at last year's Super Bowl, what was the final score? 38-35.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the norm, especially towards the end of the season. It's not a Week 1 thing, because last week was one of the worst Week 1s ever. There have been years where there are fireworks in the first week of the season and the offense is way ahead of the defense. That was not the case this year. I don't know if there's any one thing. Certainly I think teams have struggled to adapt to the new rules of training camp as far as how little contact there is. There's none in the off season, and then it's kind of regimented and spaced out during the season, during training camp, and there's not much hitting going on. And like I said, the Eagles barely played football in training camp, and last Sunday was probably the first time that most of those guys really thumped. So I think some teams struggled there. I think the weather, there was a lot of bad weather last weekend. That probably factored into it. some random things like Joe Burrow missed most of training camp with his calf injury, and then he came out and was clearly not ready to play. And just week one, I think you just saw which teams used their training camp time wisely and which teams couldn't figure it out. I think we know where the New York Giants fall, 40-0 loss. I think we see, there was just like the Seattle Seahawks just totally flat in their opener against the Rams.
Yeah.
So I just an ugly week, but I expect it to get better. No one knows how those week one games are going to unfold. It really is extended preseason. And that leads me to my final take that the NFL needs to stop scheduling division games for week one, because those games are super important for the playoffs. And, these games are basically preseason, and it's almost not fair to everyone to have such an important game right off the bat. So I would like to see the NFL stop scheduling divisional games for
early
week one of the season
and leave them all for late.
No, just not in week one. You can start in week two, but week one, especially with training camp, 3 preseason games now. Training camp, there's so little hitting. You shouldn't have to. These games are significant for the division, for the wild card, and you shouldn't put it in these week one games, where neither team really knows what to expect.
Okay. Hey, Ben, thanks for a little time today. Good to visit with you. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You got it. All right, Ben Volen, at Ben Volen. Hold it. I got it. There we go. Sometimes the button doesn't work when I push it. So at Ben Volen on Twitter /X/ whatever the hell Elon Musk is going to call it later. It's not going to stay X, is it? I know I talked about this last week. But do you think it'll stay X.com? Is that what it's going to be? Is it we call them X posts now?
Or X's.
X's? That sounds so dumb.
About to X this out.
Yeah. Hey, can I X you a question? Let me X you something. Oh, goodness. Hey, I got an email here already from Badass. Okay? Badass. All right? I disagree completely with you guys. Okay? Cool. I think that the first 10 minutes of the game was connected to last season. The remaining 50 minutes was elite. The Pats are elite again. The defense is a top 5 defense. The offensive game planning and Mac Jones within that offensive game planning is going to be an above average offense with their running game. They have a top 5 special team. I believe they get at least 10 wins this year. Mark my words. Take the last 50 minutes of the Pats-Eagles game, and if that is our season, we are elite again. Well, okay. I think Badass probably wasn't tuned in last week when I said I'm going to stick with my prediction of 11-6 for New England. I wasn't going to point that out because of the way that they lost this week, because now they're really behind it. If they're going to go get to 11 wins, it's not impossible. I think we can see that injuries are going to play a huge factor for a lot of teams. Obviously, it already has for the Jets. Nobody, like I said earlier, nobody likes to see anybody get hurt. I think it's a horrible way to end a year and your like 4th snap of the whole season. But, was that just not typical Jets? Literally, typical Jets, right? Miss Robbins stood up when it happened. Did he get hurt? Yeah, he got hurt. I don't know how bad he got hurt. J-E-T. Oh, is it too early for that? Yeah. Listen, you can't have fun with somebody else's misery. What the hell fun is it anymore, right? I know. That's okay. Hey, it's happened to the Patriots before. We know this, right? Okay, so Badass still thinks this team wins 10. I'm not sure how you feel about it, but I'm kind of curious to know whether or not 855-PATS-500, the toll-free telephone number, web radio @patriots.com. That's the email that Badass just sent to. You got to admire someone who has the, chutzpah to call themselves badass, right? What in the world did you do that qualifies you as a badass? I just want to know. Are you like a 5th degree black belt, judo son of a bleep? I don't know. What are you? Are you Chuck Norris revisited? To me, he's a badass. But other than that,
Marines!
Yeah, Marine's a badass. Okay? I don't know. It's just, I'm like, badass. Okay. That's his email address, too. Badass. I'll let you figure out the number of A's that are in there. He obviously likes the vowel A. I'm a nice man. Yeah. Oh, that was one of the best WWE intros, right? Okay. I was a Road Dogg fan myself. Oh, yeah. Oh, you didn't know? You had better call somebody. One of my favorite things ever. Oh, I know. Now I'm showing my 12-year-old side of me pretty efficiently here. Sean in Vancouver. Sean, please save me from myself.
Okay, saving on its way.
Yes.
I'm not a badass. I'm more of a flat ass.
Wait, now let's not get personal here. That's a little too much information and a picture I don't want to see. So there you go.
No, you don't need to see that photo. I'm not sending it. I think my bold prediction looks less and less bold this week, as I predicted the Patriots will have a top 5 defense. That defense was better than last season. I would tend to agree. I mean, I was really pretty happy with the way the defense played, especially holding Jalen Hurts to 170 yards. They held the Eagles to well under what we figured they would their total might be. Look, I thought they had a great game plan, and I remember saying this in the middle of the game. I remember saying this to the people that come in and frequent the booth. I just said, hey, you know what? The defense is handling it today. They're handling their business. They handed the Eagles a touchdown. They don't hand them a touchdown, then this is a game that goes right down to the stinking end, and you probably still have a chance to win it. You might even have the lead. So, I mean, the reason Patriots lost, to me, is largely, not entirely, but largely self-inflicted. Yeah. So errors.
Yeah. I just you got to eliminate the mistakes, and this was the biggest gripe, the biggest nitpick, as we love to call it here on the show, that we had with last year's team, was the fact that they were shooting themselves in the foot every freaking week. And it's kind of like, do they not teach discipline anymore? Do they not teach fundamental football anymore? And frankly, I laid it right at the feet of Coach Belichick. And I'm going to lay it right at the feet of the coaching staff right now. This is you're through week 1. This is week 2. You need to be better than this. And if the team doesn't improve, you own it. You own it. The players own it, but the coaches also own a piece of it. There's got to be more consideration. I mean, if Ezekiel Elliott can fumble, holy cow. Right? That was one of the reasons they went and got him in the first place was because the guy is supposed to have great ball security. He doesn't fumble.
I know. But here's the thing. I'm hoping, like you said, the coaches made the error. I'm hoping Belichick watches that tape and he sees it and he goes, you know what? I'm looking at this and this defense is damn good. So next time it's 10 minutes to go. We're 4th and 3 inside the red zone. We're just going to kick the field goal and let the defense do their job.
Yeah. Well,
that's what I'm hoping he gets from that.
Yeah,
but is Evan still around?
No. Evan's off doing his repertorial duties.
Well, hopefully he hears this, because I just want to respond to what he misunderstood my encouragement about the game on the offensive side.
Yeah.
And this is just what I need to say, because I saw what happened last year. 2022 was a disaster in terms of having no offensive coordinator. It just didn't work, and it was a complete mess. And I thought Mac Jones might be ruined, but I didn't know. But here I see Mac Jones, and Evan said this, in that second quarter, Mac Jones has never played better than that, throwing those darts, and making great plays. And one of the best throws he made was late in the game to Bourne, that was, I think, was 3rd and 12, and Bourne didn't catch it. You can't catch the ball. You can like Mrs. Former Brady once says, you can't throw and catch the ball at the same time. Right? You only do so much as a quarterback, right?
Right.
So I see an actual game plan. I see something that's positive, and I see Mac coming out this, like, I wasn't sure if he'd be ruined. I don't think he is. I think he's going to be better than he was 2 years ago. You can't worry about what isn't there. Okay, we don't have a top wide receiver. Yesterday we didn't have a running game. It's a short pass. That's what he's got. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Allen. He's not going to scramble and throw in there. That's not what he does. He is what he is, and that's true, but they can win that way. Sure, they're not going to score touchdowns on every drive, but if you have a running game, you limit those mistakes. Like that first interception that you were talking about earlier, he didn't have the pressure in front of him, but he probably felt like he should have, because that's what he was used to from last year.
Okay, now
wasn't there.
That's a great observation, Sean, because I thought so as well. He didn't get the pressure, so he zipped it in there, and he probably had too much mustard on it, which is why the ball kind of sailed. And you're talking about the one to Bourne that it went off his hands for the pick six, right?
Bourne jumps up, and it just touches his fingertips, and then all the defenders are behind him.
Yeah.
You just put it right, soft one in front of him. There's no one between him and the quarterback. It's an easy reception.
Right.
But yeah, he rushed it, and then he figured, I think, out from that, it's like, I don't have to do that. These backup guards, they're playing all right. I'm not getting killed in here.
Well, I thought, it would have been really easy to blame the offensive line, and I don't really have any blame for the offensive line.
They played well.
For the most part, they kind of held together. The one thing that you can criticize, if you're going to criticize anything, is the fact that they did not run block worth a worth a darn. But I know they were also overly concerned. Yeah, they're overly concerned with the speed and the strength of Philadelphia's offensive line, which to me might have indicated, well, let's just go, let's take it right at them. Let's just let's put our hats, right into their helmets, right into their chest, and let's try to go forward. And I thought they could have done a better job at that. I think we saw enough, not a lot, but we saw enough of Ezekiel Elliott to show that maybe, that he actually has something left in his legs. And maybe we give him an opportunity to try to, help us grind one out here. Because to me, that's what the Patriots really need. They never got last week, was one of those kind of grinded out drives early in the game. They never got that. And of course, in the second quarter, they bounced back. But, I mean, that would have helped, kind of set a tone and a tempo. And frankly, I feel like they're going to have to do a little grinding this week against Miami because, a team that can be as explosive as Miami is, you got to keep that offense off the field and give your defense half a chance to rest and be ready for that, don't you?
And you also can't be too predictable. You can't run straight up the middle on 1st and 10. You're going to have to try a few other things, maybe run on 2nd down. But, yeah, you want to keep the Dolphins off the field, and you don't want to do what the Chargers did and just let Hill find his zone find himself in the middle of a zone. Like, I think it was like 3rd and 10 late in the game, and the Dolphins threw right down to Hill. No one's near him. Like, what? Double team the guy.
Yeah.
Make sure you don't let Hill. I'll be happy if Waddle gets 100. I'd gladly give up 100 yards and a touchdown to Waddle if that means that Hill doesn't get a touchdown and is held under 100.
Yeah, well, I would.
The Patriots always take away your top weapon. That's the Dolphins'
right.
top weapon. They have to take them away.
Sure.
And
all right.
With this defense, they can.
Final quick one then for you, Sean. Must win on Sunday?
Yeah.
Must win?
Must win, and they do it 23-22.
Ooh.
Yeah, 23-22.
23-22?
Yeah, 23-22.
Okay.
Strange score, but that's what I got.
That's okay. I like it.
Oh, no, I changed it. Sorry. Let's make it a little
Then what are you changing it to?
24-23.
24-23. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Patriots have the 24 or the Dolphins?
Patriots 24, Dolphins 23.
I knew that already. Thanks, Sean. You're good. I appreciate you. Armando Salguero covers the NFL, I should say, for Outkick and Outkick.com, but he has also been a primary, beat writer, reporter for the Miami Herald for a number of years before his time at Outkick, covering specifically the Miami Dolphins beat. He's been a friend of this program and been kind enough to visit with us once or sometimes even twice throughout the course of a football season when the two longtime AFC East foes decide to bang helmets again. And we thought, well, what for old time's sake, let's get Armando to talk a little, not only Dolphins, but talk a little NFL as well. And he joined us here inside the Playbook. Armando, it's nice to have a chance to speak with you again. Thank you for making time for us.
I appreciate you saying a number of years rather than a number of decades. That makes me feel good.
Dude, I'm right there with you with decades, okay? I'm in my 4th, so here we go.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
and
right?
Hopefully you'll make 4 more after that.
I don't know about that, dude. I think the golf course beckons. Let's be honest here. The golf course, the beach, my boat, it all beckons.
Look at you 1%er, you. I love it.
See? Right? All right. We got to dream big.
Sure.
What's your overall impression of we've been kind of dancing around this one so far today, and there was a part of me that felt really badly after Aaron Rodgers went down. And then, of course, there's another part of me that kind of chuckled a little bit because I said only the Jets. I mean, only something like this could happen to the Jets. And I'm sure that probably occurred to more than just, a couple of fans across the country. What does Aaron Rodgers' injury really mean within the AFC East, and your thoughts here?
Well, it upsets the apple cart, does it not? It opens up a spot. Everyone was thinking the AFC East, at minimum, will have two playoff teams, the winner of the division and the runner-up, who will obviously still be a very good team because there are a lot of good teams in the AFC East.
Mm-hmm.
The New York Jets are not going to be either one of those two. Let me just say that right now, okay? The Jets have a great defense, and it's a defense that bedevils Josh Allen every year. But, football is kind of more than just about the defense. You got to score some points here. And they manufactured some against the Bills, but that's not going to happen every week. And I'm just not a believer in Zach Wilson. So I'm done with the Jets. It's over.
Wow. 1 week down, 16 more to go. They're toast. They're out. I got to admit, I kind of think the same way. I'm not going to lie to you. Robert Saleh had said, and I saw this tweet from you earlier today, that he'd be shocked if Rodgers retired. Frankly, I think I would be too, just because of the way that he went out. Is there a chance that he retires?
There's always a chance that Aaron Rodgers will do whatever Aaron Rodgers decides that next second. Here's the landscape. Aaron Rodgers in 2021 had a great season, and after the season, he thought about what? Oh, retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And so he thought about it for a while and did his whole retreat thing that he does every offseason, came back and decided, I'll come back for $50 million a year. Last year, after not such a great season, he played that season finale, and in his mind, that was going to be the last game of his career. I'm not saying that. He has said that. He went on that so-called darkness retreat and came out of it believing in his mind he was retiring.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that.
He said that. Yeah.
And so the idea that Robert Saleh today said he'd be shocked if Aaron Rodgers, goes out like with that game the other night.
It's a smokescreen. Smokescreen.
Robert Saleh hasn't talked to Aaron Rodgers on the subject, and Aaron Rodgers today might have a different opinion than Aaron Rodgers 3 months from now.
Yeah.
Post surgery.
Yeah.
So the idea that he is definitely coming back, come on.
Yeah.
We don't know Aaron Rodgers like that.
Yeah. Everybody wants the hot take on that one, but you're absolutely right about that, especially since, as you well point out, he's talked about leaving previous to arriving in New York. All right, let's push the Jets aside. And for Patriots fans, they got to wait another week to sink their teeth into that carcass in particular. Tua Tagovailoa was the AFC Offensive Player of the Week for his performance. 466. I mean, I realize that the Chargers, and every time I see LAC, the abbreviation, I think Los Angeles Clippers. That's just the old, NBA in me. But the Chargers may not have a very good defense, but I got to tell you, it caught my attention as soon as I saw that happen. So is this Miami team as explosive as they appeared to be last week?
The Chargers may not have a very good coach. Is what the Chargers don't have. Look, a week ago, before that game was played, everyone knew that Tyreek Hill's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really good.
Mm-hmm.
He was pretty good in Kansas City for years, and last year, like the first, I would say, month and a half of the season, he was on pace for a 2,000-yard season. So he should not be a revelation to anybody. And yet, in the game against the Los Angeles Chargers, Brandon Staley, who is a defensive-minded coach, a former defensive coordinator, man coverage a lot, over and over.
What are you doing?
Over.
Yeah, what are you doing, right? Yeah.
And adjustment? No, we're going to do what we do. Whoops. There's another touchdown.
Yeah.
And so...
and they only lost by 2 points.
Right. Well, because he's got arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL in Justin Herbert, which he's wasting, by the way. But that being aside, my feeling is that Bill Belichick isn't going to let that happen. Tyreek Hill is going to get his against the Patriots on Sunday, just like he does against everybody when Tua Tagovailoa plays. But is he going to go off for 215 yards while Belichick watches him torch man coverage over and over and over again? I don't think so. I think Belichick normally tries to take out your best player, and then you have to adjust to that and try to beat the Patriots with your second best player. And, Tyreek Hill is their best player, so I guess he's going to draw some attention from the Patriots.
He'll definitely draw attention, but it's almost kind of like choose your poison. So if they take Tyreek out, that's a hell of an opportunity for Jalen Waddle. Conversely, if they decide Waddle's the guy that can damage them, which seems to be an early consensus around here, boy, does that open up opportunity for Tyreek. I mean, I don't know. Can you take them both out?
No, you can't. But here's what you can do. You have to find a way to put pressure on Tua Tagovailoa.
Yep.
Last week there was none, and the Dolphins' offense is built for there to be none because it's a two-step balls out kind of thing, and that's the way they're hoping to keep him healthy and durable this year, and that's just the way that they've built the scheme. The idea has to be you have to make him come off that first read. You have to make him need to do something else.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got pressure on him. You're not going to get pressure on him if he can't take that first read away.
Right.
But you can if he has to go through his progression.
So is this Miami team is presently constituted? Is this a team that can, should, maybe is the favorite in the AFC East now? Should they be?
I don't know if they're the favorite yet. I mean, look, the Bills, they laid an egg against the Jets on Monday night. Josh Allen, 3 interceptions and a fumble, a lost fumble at that. He fumbled actually twice, arguably the worst game of his career. And I'm not sure that he's going to repeat that very often this year. So, somebody just once upon a time said to be the man, you got to beat the man.
Mm-hmm.
When the Dolphins beat the Bills, then we can talk, but not until.
Yeah, I kind of am that opinion as well. It was that way when the Patriots were up on top of the league for the division, especially for a long time. To beat them, to be the man, you got to beat the men, and finally the Bills did. And I kind of thought that maybe this was the year that the Bills took a step back. I know some others shared that opinion, largely because of the changes that they've had on the defensive side of the ball. And now we're seeing that Josh Allen may have some issues of his own because he was a little extra careless the other night. And, not without casting direct aspersions, the team that I thought that would rise to the fore of this was Miami. And I'm not surprised that they won the game in the manner in which they won last week. And, I would tell you that my personal favorite to win the division before the year started was Miami.
It's hard to disagree, but look, the Bills have suffered from what I would say is brain drain. You lose your offensive coordinator who basically developed Josh Allen.
Right.
Josh Allen last year wasn't as good as he was the year before.
Right.
You lose, you move off of your defensive coordinator, who is a very good coach, and now the head coach is not juggling, but trying to do both jobs. As a head coach, Sean McDermott is the head coach and the de facto defensive coordinator who's calling the defense. That's a lot of assignments for one guy. They've lost people in the front office. They've lost people below the coordinator level. They lost their quarterback coach as well. He went to the Giants. A team that has success has a certain window to maximize that success.
Sure.
And I agree with you. The Bills didn't maximize. They got, they happened to have the tough luck of playing in a league that has the Kansas City Chiefs in it. And so there is that. And they are not the monster behemoth super team that they look like 2 years ago, 1 year ago, but are they division worthy in this division without Aaron Rodgers and with Tua still being a durability question? I think they are.
All right, before I let you go, Armando, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about something that we haven't had reason to really talk about. We may not get that chance here, but I know that you've written about it and you probably opined about it as well. The two owners in the NFL, Jerry Jones and Terry Pagula in Buffalo, who have allegedly made some, let's just say, less than flattering comments, and they were named in a lawsuit by a former NFL reporter and Jim Trotter. I'm kind of curious as to what you think. If this is something that the NFL can sufficiently kick under the rug, or if Jerry Jones and Terry Pagula might actually be in real trouble for some of the things that they've said.
Well, allegedly said, right?
Allegedly said.
Both have said that they didn't say it.
Right.
This is what I think about that whole thing. First of all, if you feel like you were damaged, why wasn't this suit brought before you lost your job?
Yeah. That's the big thing. That's number one. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you were okay with it until they stopped paying you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's number one. Number two, the suit does feel like it's going to make the NFL quite uncomfortable, especially if it gets to the discovery phase and there's depositions and you can ask for all sorts of records. Typically what the NFL does in response to that threat is it settles, or it just throws gobs and gobs of lawyerisms at the opposition.
Yeah.
And they've got billions of dollars to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would be surprised if we ever see this in a court of law. I would say that we're headed towards a settlement and or a dismissal.
Yeah, I think a settlement is likely because that's the quickest way you can shut people up, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Some people.
So, yeah, depends on who you ask or who you try to shut up. That's true. Hey, Armando. Yeah.
For example, Brian Flores.
Yeah.
They're not shutting that guy up.
No, I think we learned that around here. That's one of the reasons why so many people around here liked him, because he was willing to stand up and say what's what. And some people have backbones. Some people understand what it is. Some people want to fight for, true wrongs that have been done out there. And I appreciate those people more than I think most people really realize. I appreciate you, Armando. Thank you for the time today, as always.
To more decades.
To at least another decade.
That'd be great.
Okay. Awesome. Have a good season. Talk to you down the way.
Sounds great.
You got it. Armando Salguero. You can get him at Armando Salguero, Salguero is how you spell his last name, on X. I just will never get used to that. I'll never get used to that. I honestly, and I, there really wasn't a place for us to bring this up, but I actually think that if we get to the discovery phase, as he mentioned, on this whole, Jerry Jones, Terry Pagula thing, that it's quite likely that other teams and other individuals get dragged into this. So if you're in a position of power within the NFL, or if you've had any dealings with this former NFL, network reporter Jim Trotter, who got fired and brought the lawsuit against these teams for this alleged discriminatory talk that he was talking about, racist talk he's talking about, because Jim is black, then you might be a little nervous right now. Just a story to kind of watch. That's all I'm going to say. I think it's a story to kind of watch, because when we're talking, things being said and political correctness and everything in this day and age, you had best mind your P's and Q's, because it's an ultra sensitive subject. I just can't figure out, as we were sort of talking about there, I just can't figure out whether or not this was, motivated because of the real racial wronging done here, or if this was something that was done because he was just fired, and he's, it's retaliatory. I don't know. I just don't know yet. All right, so we'll figure this one as we go along. Patriots fans, if you want to see Toyota's best offers, including those not seen on TV, go to buyatoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals from the official vehicle of the New England Patriots. Toyota, let's go places. And Bridgestone is the official tire of the New England Patriots, and Bridgestone tires are now on sale through September 30th at all Sullivan Tire locations. Visit sullivantire.com for a location near you. Russell Baxter, the pro football guru himself, joins us in 12 minutes, 11 minutes from now. So we got time for you. 855-PATS 500, 855-PATS 500, web radio at patriots.com, at JR Broadcaster if you want to tweet at me, post at me, whatever the hell we're supposed to call it now. Or if you want to post on Facebook, you can do so, John.Rooke, R-O-O-K-E. Here's one from Sergio. Sergio says, John, longtime listener, happy to have you back every Wednesday. I think one of the problems with this team is that Bill is trying to run it like Brady is still here. That's actually a common complaint. That's a very common criticism, that Bill still tries to run it like Brady's here. Well, let me explain something to you about Bill if you haven't already figured this out, gang, okay? Bill's going to Bill. He's going to do exactly what you've seen him do, regardless of personnel. What Bill's biggest issue is that, at least in my humble opinion, is that he doesn't have the talent that he had here, and he doesn't have the overwhelming presence of one Tom Brady to bail him out. I mean, that's how huge Brady was. That's why Brady probably should go down as the greatest quarterback to ever play, regardless of what Chiefs fans think about their own guy Patrick Mahomes. He needs to do what Brady did for at least another decade before you can even put him in the same category. So let's be honest here. Let's go by the numbers. And Brady never had receivers that Mahomes has had, and so Bill's clouded by that, and I think he long has been. Was it Brady or was it Bill for the success? I heard that one debated again for the millionth time or more earlier today. It was some talk show here locally, and I've forgotten. You can make compelling arguments either way, but if, the brain trust under Bill doesn't draft Tom, which was Dick Rabine, the late Dick Rabine, who was the one that said, hey, I like something about that kid out of Michigan. So they decided to take a shot at him in the 6th round at number 199, right? So if it wasn't for Dick Rabine convincing Bill Belichick and the Patriots brain trust at the time to take a shot at this guy, none of this would ever happen. Maybe, what would be fun? What would be fun is to go into Flash's alternate universe. This is right up Marine's alley here. We need to go into a Flash alternate universe to find out what would have happened if the Patriots didn't draft Tom Brady in 2000. What do you think about that, Marine?
It'd be the Jaguars.
Yeah. Right? We would. You think this team would be the Jaguars?
Probably.
I mean, Drew Bledsoe obviously then comes back and plays, doesn't he? Right? So
Forget about Drew. I'm young.
Yeah, I know. But I'm just saying, I finally saw The Flash from start to finish in the movie. It was on HBO or something this week. I was greatly disappointed.
You're telling me.
Yeah, I know. You're the comic book fiend. I wanted to like it, and there were a couple of parts of the movie that I actually did like. I actually liked the sequence at the end where all the worlds and the universes were colliding, and they showed all the old footage from the George Reeves Superman, and oh my God, there was who the hell played
Nick Cage.
Yes, thank you, Nicolas Cage. I stuck on that one. The Nicolas Cage Superman. We forget that one ever happened. Kind of like the Val Kilmer Batman. We forget that one happened too, right? It's kind of forgetful, but nevertheless, I enjoyed that part. That part was kind of cool to see all the comic book stuff sort of collide together.
There were a lot of cool Easter eggs in the movie. I'll give it that.
Yeah, but it was so hard to freaking follow.
Fell apart. Like, what is it?
Oh, it did. And then the stuff between the two Flashes was tedious. It was just tedious, right?
Everybody, you want to watch a good version of Flashpoint, go watch the animated version that came out a few years ago.
Yeah,
Perfect.
sure, I understand. But you know what it reminded me of was, present-day Flash was working with his alternate universe Flash. It reminded me of me when I've said many, many times, if I could talk to my younger self, and this is what I would tell my younger self. That's what it reminded me of. I said, oh, my God, he's talking to his younger self. He's talking to the 18-year-old version of him. What would we do if you could talk to the 18-year-old version of you? What's the first thing you'd say to 18-year-old Marine?
Probably not to join the Marines.
Well, let's be honest. Oh, goodness. What would I tell myself if I met the 18-year-old Rook? Oh, God. 3 words. Just say no.
Change mine to learn a trade.
Right. Don't go there. Oh. Or come up for air. That's another one I think I'd probably say, please, come up for air. Let me see what Sergio has here. Okay, so he said, I think one of the problems of the team is that Bill is trying to run it like Brady is still here. I just don't think Mac has that clutch factor, and he isn't talented enough to bring up average receivers. You're comparing him, Sergio, to Tom. That's an unfair comparison. You can't do that. Mac deserves to have the opportunity to be Mac Jones. Is anybody fair to compare to Tom? Well, no, when you're the greatest of all time. You're going to fall short. And you're right. You don't have the receivers that Tom had. Hell, you can make an argument, though, that Mac might have some better receivers now than Tom ever had. And again, that's with all due respect to Julian Edelman and Wes Welker and Randy Moss and some of the ones that actually, Troy Brown, that came through here and actually performed pretty well. Brady made average receivers look great, but that's Tom Brady we're talking about. Mac's a decent quarterback, but he needs elite receivers. I don't know if you need elite. I would settle for one really good one that'll take pressure off of the very good ones. Does that make sense? I would settle for one really good receiver. Hello, DeAndre Hopkins. I would settle for one really good receiver that takes the pressure off of the very good ones. And I think then Mac is already a better quarterback. He says the information in this communication. That's the end. That's his email. He didn't put any buffer there. All right. Okay. It's a good point, Sergio. We'll agree to disagree on that one because I don't think Mac is. I don't think the clutch factor. I think clutch factor, can be developed to a certain extent. If the Patriots had won the game this past weekend, then I would say that Mac probably has a little bit of that clutch factor. Nobody has the clutch factor like Tom Brady had it. No one. Not Tua, not, no one. Not Patrick Mahomes. I don't think he has the clutch factor yet. He's got really good players around him. He's got the ability to take a team down the field, at a moment's notice. I'm just not sure about the clutch factor. Clutch to me is defined by much more than just being able to throw the ball up the field or make plays. Mahomes is close. but he's got to do it over a number of years in order to, I think, be put, close to the same pedestal that Tom Brady is in. Close. Tim in the UK. Hey, Tim. Welcome into the Playbook. How are you?
Hey, Joe. Not bad. How are you?
Good. What's on your mind today?
Frustrating loss on Sunday. As soon as that pick six was thrown at, kind of just all these flashbacks from last year coming back, and the game played out, much the same as they all did last year. Put yourself in a hole early, make as many mistakes as you do good plays, and put yourself in a position to come back at the end, and twice couldn't come up with anything in the red zone to take the lead.
You bring out a real important point, though. The fact about it is that when it happened, the first thing that I'm thinking is oh my God, this is last year all over again, because this team shot itself in the foot almost every game, at least once or twice. And ultimately, they weren't able to overcome those self-inflicted wounds because they missed the postseason. And so if you've got a team that all they really need to do, we think they're certainly better defensively. We think they at least improved incrementally on offense, if you have a representative offensive line back. And so if you just clean up the mistakes, this team has a shot at being better. Again, the schedule's probably arguably a little tougher than a year ago, but you still have reason to believe that this team can be better. If they're only one, maybe two games better, if they can win one or two that, they didn't win a year ago, this team is probably in the postseason. And yet you saw that happen early, and then you dig yourself a 16-0 hole, and it's like, my God, did they not learn anything from a year ago? That bugged me.
Yeah, exactly. I'm right there with you, John.
That just bugged me. And then I give them a lot of credit for fighting back the way that they did and staying in the game, because that could have easily been a 24-0 game at halftime, and then you got Tom Brady coming out and saying what he said and yada yada and celebrating, and it just wouldn't have been a terribly celebratory move. They were able to come back and make a game of it, obviously at halftime with that good second quarter push, but then they could never get over the hump. The defense bent a little bit, but they didn't break. They didn't give up big plays. They didn't give up the touchdowns, but they gave up clutch plays. So, first down plays. And I mean, I'm not necessarily, sometimes you have to give the other team credit. They've got athletes too. They got ability too. And Philadelphia is a Super Bowl, contending team for a reason. Although I think Philadelphia, I'll be honest with you, because I know they were trying to scrape off a lot of the rust on Sunday. What I saw from them didn't really look like a team that had just gotten out of the Super Bowl. And again, maybe it's just because they didn't play at all.
A lot of those Super Bowl runner-ups, have shaky starts. After a Super Bowl loss, that's something that we've seen before.
It's not. So, well, look, nothing you can do about that one. It's over. So you try to figure out a way to get the next one. And the question that I asked today, Tim, was, is this must-win? In your estimation, then on Sunday, is it must-win Sunday night for this team too? And I know you guys will have to watch it early in the morning, which kind of sucks for you. But what do you watch it live? Do you watch it by yourself? Do you watch it with other people, or do you sort of record it and watch it the next day?
Sunday afternoon games are okay. A 1 o'clock kickoff is about 6 in the evening over here. So,
right. But this one isn't kicking off until 8:20 at night, East Coast time.
I'll probably catch up with that in the week.
See, that's what I was just curious to know. And I know some of our UK people, will hold all night watching parties or what have you. But I got to imagine that if you do that 3 or 4 times during the year, which the Patriots were doing a few years ago, that's got to be rough.
Yeah, it takes its toll. For the big ones, I might do it, and depends what I've got going on Monday morning.
Well, that's what I love. That's why I love you guys. You're dedicated fans. So, is this must win then on Sunday for this team?
For a brief window between the Pats losing and Aaron Rodgers' injury, yes, it was must win because you needed to stay in that AFC East race.
Mm-hmm.
With the Jets, probably not going to be as hot this year as they would have been. I think that gives you a little bit of leeway.
Okay. Little leeway, but yeah, it would be better, obviously better to win than to lose. But listen, you're 0-2, you're 0-1 in the division. If you lose this weekend, it puts a completely different scheme, a different light on this season if you win it as opposed to losing it this early in the year.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
And especially after watching what Miami did in LA, if you can hold Waddle and Hill, in check to an extent, and not have Miami put up, what was it, 36 in the end?
Well, I don't think you can't let Miami score 36 and expect to win the game Sunday. You can't. You can't let them get close. If you can hold Miami to under 24, you got a shot. Because you struggle to get to 24 yourself, and I think we've seen that still with this team. So the best chance you have is to keep Miami to 3 touchdowns and a field goal, and then hope that you can figure out a way to score 3 touchdowns and a field goal yourself on offense against a Miami defense that may still have some question marks early. And that's kind of the way that I'm thinking this thing plays out. I know one of our callers earlier, Sean in Vancouver, he said he thought it would be 24-23. I kind of like that pick. I'm going to go, I think, 27-26. And I think I'm going to take the Patriots to win it. Just because, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt in terms of the desperation here. Because they need this more than Miami needs it. Miami can prove a lot to a lot of people with this win. They can absolutely take charge of the division 2 weeks into the season if they go on the road and they beat the Patriots, without a doubt.
John, before I head off, I want to give you and I a little bit of credit after our chat last week.
Shoot.
You absolutely nailed Kendrick Bourne being a big part of it this year.
Well, he was.
Unfortunately,
the problem is he could have been and should have been a bigger part.
Well, yeah. But unfortunately, my prediction about Juju being a downgrade from Jacoby, I feel vindicated after both Juju's performance on Sunday and Jacoby's in Vegas.
I know. Listen, hindsight, as we know, hindsight as we know, Tim, is 20/20. But the whole Juju thing is a little bit troublesome because if he's had if they've been protecting him for his knee, I guess I can understand that. But I just don't know why they wouldn't have gone out and gotten more help at receiver, knowing that Juju had this knee problem or this alleged knee problem, and that Tyquan was going to be in the shape that he's in. And why wouldn't you go out and get yourself more help? You're relying on 2 6th-round receivers, which was Evan's chief complaint earlier. And you don't have Devontae Parker, who can't stay healthy and can't get back on the field. And so you're relying now on 2 6th-round receivers to bail you out of tough difficulties, tough situations, and that's unfair. And not only is that unfair, that's just dumb.
Yeah.
That's dumb.
Yeah, completely agree.
So, Tim, thank you for the call. Appreciate you.
All right, no worries, John. Take care. Bye.
Talk to you soon, my friend. Patriots fans, if you want to see Toyota's best offers, including those not seen on TV, go to buyatoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals from the official vehicle of the New England Patriots, Toyota. Let's go places.
A real woman could stop you from drinking.
It has to be a real big woman.
It's time to go around the NFL with football guru Russell Baxter.
From now on, your name is Flounder.
On Patriots Playbook.
Flounder.
By the way, before we get to Flounder, with all due respect, Russell, Claire sent this email from the UK. She says, so I have a sandwich bet with my buddy, and I'm going 11-6. Pat's second in the division. Is she being overly optimistic? I said 11-6. I don't know. I think 11-6 after starting 0-1 might be a little bit more difficult to achieve, but certainly not impossible. And let's bring in the aforementioned Russell Baxter to get his thoughts on what he saw from New England against Philadelphia this past Sunday. Is 11-6 out of the question?
Well, I think it would depend on the sandwich.
Right. So, are we going to start talking about favorites? We're going to start talking about favorite sandwiches now.
Well, that's a 24-hour show.
It would be.
You know me, John. I've never turned down the sandwich.
Oh no,
so.
no. Well, I haven't either.
Yeah.
Usually don't.
Listen, we know how it's topsy-turvy. At any one time, a team can get hot. And, by the way, at any one time, a team can get very, very cold.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a streaky league for quite a while. I mean, you look at, some of the teams that made the playoffs last year that went barreling in to the postseason on winning streak.
Yep.
And then, of course, we saw, in my the more things change, the more things stay the same piece that I did for Ian for full press coverage. We had 5 teams who went into week 1 having lost at least their last 6 games last season.
Wow. Okay.
And the only one who didn't lose again were the Jets.
Right.
Okay, so
Right.
now Tennessee and Indy are sitting in Arizona, 8-game losing streaks, and the Bears have lost 11 games in a row.
That's nuts.
Okay?
So we have two teams with 8-game losing streaks now and one with 11, right?
No, 3 teams.
3 teams.
Tennessee, Indianapolis. I mean, look at Jacksonville. It's just interesting. They were the only team to win in the division last week. Indy and Tennessee are in free fall. Houston is in rebuild mode. So now, of course, they get the Chiefs this week, which the well-rested Chiefs,
Mm-hmm.
who also have Chris Jones back. I don't know if they'll have Kelsey back.
Yeah.
We'll have to see about that. He's had some extra time, but
Right.
and Kansas City beat the Jaguars not once but twice last year.
That's true. That's
So,
true. They did. Yeah.
I mean, 11-6. I don't rule anything out. I get tired of the that's impossible and this is impossible, and there were a lot of teams last year that were left, just thought that we would be miserable. The Giants were very surprising last year. The Seahawks were astounding last year. We've talked about this, and Jacksonville had finished last in the division 4 years in a row, and then all of a sudden they won it.
Yeah.
So.
By the way,
we talked about this last year, John, and New England doesn't qualify for this because they didn't finish in last place, but half the league last year, as far as their last place teams, all made the playoffs 1 year later.
Mm-hmm. By the way, the Giants were unbelievably disappointing. Whether you're a Cowboy fan or not, but to get beat 40-0 in the opening week of the season, I mean, wow, how does that happen?
Well, it happened because your offensive line and your special teams really let you down. You got the one interception was off of deflection and so on, but they looked bedazzled. Okay?
Yeah.
But no, I mean, listen, we don't see that many shutouts in the league to begin with.
No, but to get beat by 40?
Yeah, I know. I know. I mean, the shutout is one thing. The 40-0 was pretty astounding. And again, Dallas's offense didn't do all that much. Of course, they didn't really have to. But I mean, it was really unbelievable. I mean, but I'll tell you something. It shows you the difference between teams and how they handle things.
Yeah.
Okay? Mm-hmm. Because if you really think about it, John, a couple hours earlier, the Patriots found themselves in similar mode. Down to Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
A pick six. Ezekiel Elliott fumble, set up another score, and all of a sudden the Patriots are down big. But they hung in there. The Giants didn't. Those games weren't all that much different in terms of how they started. They were certainly different on how they concluded.
You cut out right at the very end there, Russell. Can you say what you just said over again?
The Patriots-Eagles game and the Giants-Cowboys game were very similar in the way they started. They were not anywhere close to the way they finished.
Yeah.
New England hung in there, probably outplayed Philadelphia the last 3 quarters. So, and that just shows you that resiliency, and it shows you Bill Belichick and Brian Daboll, and that's not a knock on him, but that's a team that is still learning. And here's something to point out about the Giants, okay? As good as they were last year, and they surprised a lot of people, they've now lost 5 in a row to the Cowboys. And even though last year they were a playoff team, 9-7-1, and won a playoff game, they beat Minnesota in Minnesota. They were, during the regular season, 1-4-1 against their own division.
Mm-hmm.
And now make it 1-5-1 because they got plastered in Philadelphia in the playoffs.
Right.
And now make it 1-6-1 in their last 8 division games after last week.
Yeah. I obviously would be remiss if I didn't ask you what your thoughts were on the Aaron Rodgers debacle in New York as well. It's so unfortunate to have, a star player in the NFL go out like that on the 4th snap that he had of the night. And yet, there's a part of me, as I mentioned earlier in the show today, that I kind of chuckled at it because I'm like, the Jets just can't get out of their own way. And it just seems like this is, if you have a cursed franchise in the NFL, that might be one.
Well, I mean, it was so sad to watch that and so on, and hopefully that's not the last we see of him.
I don't think it will be. I don't think you go out like that. Can you possibly go out like that?
No. You remember, it's interesting. It was in the latter stages of his career, and I want to say the year was 1993. Lawrence Taylor getting carted off early in the season and missing most of the year. And oh, is that it? And 1993 would have been his 13th year in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't going out that way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know he's been seen on a golf cart for the last 25 years. And I don't know what his handicap is. But Lawrence Taylor wasn't going out that way. And I get the feeling Aaron Rodgers won't go out that way at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of think so, too. I mean, it's unfortunate, but, nevertheless, it does keep things wide open in the AFC East. Do you have an overall impression for the lower level of offensive play in Week 1 that we seem to have with the number of points that are actually scored, per game? I think it was like 40 points a game or whatever, and it was actually a pretty low number for NFL in terms of historical purposes. What was your take on that?
Not shocking. I mean, I will say this. We did see during the preseason, John, some teams play their regulars a lot more than people thought, okay? But we also know in this league that it's hard to come out of the gate flying. It really is, offensively, because they don't allow you to do a lot with their offense, with your offensive line in training camp. They limit physical play. So, we saw, I mean, if you went to the Meadowlands this week, I'm still calling it the Meadowlands, okay? If you went to the Meadowlands this week and watched...
So does Jimmy Hoffa.
Yes, I digged in. If you watched the Jets and the Giants game this weekend, say you were a New York fan, you went to both. Think about how many turnovers and how big special teams were in those games. The Cowboys blocked a punt and returned it for a touchdown. The Jets won the game on a punt return in overtime.
Mm-hmm.
They forced Josh Allen into 4 turnovers Monday night. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
We saw Daniel Jones and the Giants overrun by a very, very fast Dallas defense, and they couldn't hang on to the ball.
Right.
So you if you went there to see offense, okay, I mean, you saw one team get shut out, you saw another team, limited as far as their offense and so on. A lot of that obviously had to do with Aaron Rodgers going down, but again, it to me it's so interesting to watch teams overcome adversity, okay? The Giants didn't. The Patriots did to a point, but they couldn't close the deal. And the Jets certainly did, coming back and winning that game.
Yeah. Let's take a look then at Week 2. We have Thursday. The Eagles are back on the slate. They got kind of a tough road to hoe to start the season. They're at home, though, for their opener against the Vikings, who started out somewhat disappointingly. That certainly will catch, I think, some attention, for early in the schedule. The Bills are back at home, but they've got to go to play a Raiders team that won their first game. The Bengals may have been, to me, one of the bigger disappointments of the entire week. they get to go home, and they'll take on a Ravens team that started out undefeated. And then I'll be anxious to see, a lot of intrigue, I think, this week. I'll be anxious to see how the Lions repeat after getting that big win over Kansas City on the road to open up. They're at home for their opener against a Seattle team that fell short of the mark. So there's definitely intrigue in almost every week that we got on the schedule this week, every game on the schedule.
Yeah, and week one was great because half the games, 8 of them were divisional games. I think
Right.
we have six more this week. And, if you're Cincinnati, now remember, Cincinnati was 0-2 last year and struggled in the middle of the year, got killed by Cleveland on a Monday night, and then rebounded and obviously made it. But, to be 0-2 last year when they lost to Pittsburgh and Dallas, opposed to 0-2 if they lose to Cleveland and Baltimore, which are 2 divisional losses.
Yeah.
That puts you a little behind the 8 ball right away.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff I look at we've talked about this 100 times, so this will be 101. How you hold serve in the division, how you play against your rivals. And if you can't play against your rivals competitively, you're going to struggle to win division titles. You might get in the playoffs, but we obviously know it's a long way to the Super Bowl. Now, I mean, listen, Tampa Bay won the Super Bowl as a wild card a couple of years ago. Okay? So Tampa Bay lost its first game of the season that year and still won the Super Bowl. So obviously things change, and things change also because there's now 7 teams per conference in the playoffs.
Right.
So it is intriguing. Detroit's intriguing because, listen, they won one game and they beat the Chiefs in there. That does not make a playoff run.
Yeah.
But it's how they handled that. It's how they handle that in terms of a letdown. That is the key. Now, I think I remember last year when they played, and they struggled. Offensively, early on, they were a powerhouse. Defensively, throughout the year until later in the year, they were really tough. And one of the games they lost last year, we didn't know Geno Smith was on his way to becoming NFL Comeback Player of the Year, but he had a monster game at Detroit. So how Dan Campbell handles that, and they can get off to a decent start, which obviously that division is seemingly up for grabs this year because there's a lot of components. Minnesota is undergoing whatever they're undergoing. And last year they went into Philly on a Monday night and got destroyed.
Right.
So I'll be curious to see how that happens.
Yeah, I want to see how they handle success. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and they finished last year so strong. I obviously think they were probably one of the few teams that seemed to have benefited, from Hard Knocks on HBO because that gets panned so much nowadays. But I kind of I put it to you this way: I've got interest in the Lions where previously I could care less.
Well, yeah. Listen, I think any time a team is down, as long as they've been down, and let's throw out the streets here. First off, they've never been to the Super Bowl. They're the only team in the NFC that has not been to at least one Super Bowl.
Wow. There you go. Yep.
They have not won an NFL title, and they've won 4 of them in their history. They have not won an NFL title since 1957.
Right.
That's 2 years before I was born. Do the math.
Same here.
Okay.
Yep.
They have not won a playoff game since Eric Kramer riddled Jimmy Johnson's Dallas Cowboys in the 1991 divisional round, by the way, at the Silverdome. And they haven't won the division title since the division was called the NFC Central. That would be 1993.
Yeah.
So that's a lot to overcome.
Yep.
In terms of history and perception.
Was Bobby Lane their quarterback when they last won?
When who?
Bobby Lane. Was he their quarterback?
Oh, I'm trying to think in 57 if he was. It's escaping me right now. I don't want to commit to that.
I know.
But I know who the quarterback was when they won that playoff game. Like I said, it was Eric Kramer. And they had guys like Herman Moore.
Yeah.
And, very excited. That was Wayne Fontz's team. That was a pretty good team. But again, they haven't won. They lost to the Redskins in the NFC title game, and that's been it since then. So I think we saw this to a degree with the Browns the last couple of years. We saw it to a degree with the Buccaneers once Brady got there. And so I remember those teams ended long postseason droughts. And I think people were, honestly, John, probably looking forward to that with the Jets this year, with Aaron Rodgers being there. Because, as we know, the Jets currently own the longest playoff drought in the league. They've been there since 2010.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I'm presently watching on NFL Network, a monitor here in front of me in the studio. I'm watching the Miami, Chargers game, and clearly, it was a game that went back and forth. The Chargers, had an opportunity, obviously couldn't hold it. Miami came roaring back, scored 36, won at 36-34. They have unbelievable weapons on offense. Defense probably still needs a little tweaking. They've got some new coaches on that side of the ball this year as well. But I don't know about you, at least in week one, the NFL's dynamic offense seems to reside in South Florida. And, I'm wondering if that is still going to be the modus operandi for championship contending teams, is offense first, or because we saw an overall sort of shrinkage in combined point score in week one, if we're not beginning to start on another era of defense over offense in the league. I mean, too soon probably to really gauge that, but I'd kind of like to get your early thoughts on that.
Well, I think it is too soon to gauge it, but I understand where you're going there, John, because, it's funny. I've always had this school of thought. The NFL has always tried to introduce more offense, okay?
Yeah.
I remember going back to 76 and 77 when I was like 50 years old. And there were like almost a record number of shutouts in the modern era. Now, a lot of that had to do with the expansion Buccaneers, those first 2 years in the league. I want to say they were shut out like 11 times in 2 seasons. I mean, they were horrible.
I'm going to digress here for just a second, Russell, because it reminds me of my favorite football quote ever. When John McKay was asked about the Buccaneers' execution, he says, "I'd be in favor of it."
Absolutely. He had another one a year later. They lost the game to the Rams, and he said, I guess on the game touchdown that decided the game, the Bucs only had 10 men on the field. Mm-hmm. And he said something to the nature of, as good as we are, we can't beat the Rams with 10 men.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he was always, he always kind of, you've seen the NFL film stuff with him, where he spends like 20 minutes trying to get his players to sit down.
Yeah.
On the sidelines, the discipline and so on. And
right.
Very, very funny. But anyway, in 1978, they changed the rules to open up the passing game. Offensive linemen could extend their arms to pass block. The 5-yard contact rule began. It was funny because the Steelers, who were, as you know, a running football team with that great defense, won back-to-back Super Bowls in 74 and 75. Then they changed the rules, and guess who won back-to-back Super Bowls with the new rules? It was the Pittsburgh Steelers, now throwing the ball with Bradshaw and Swan and Stallworth and that whole cast. Their defense wasn't good, but I digress. Now, ever since then, we have seen tweaks and little things to make more offense. And I think there's been a theory of, that the league just wants more exciting games. My theory has always been this, and you kind of alluded to it. They keep changing the rules because defenses adjust much faster than people think. Yeah,
they definitely
maybe
do.
That's the case again. Maybe that's the case again. That Miami, by the way, that Miami Chargers game last week, it reminded me of the Miami-Baltimore game last year in week 2. Remember when Tua went crazy, down 21-0, they came all the way back, and so on. And listen, Tyreek Hill, the guy. This is just for a little perspective. He's been in the league. This is his 8th year. Okay. His first 7 years in the league, which includes last year with the Dolphins, he was named to the Pro Bowl every year. Okay. And now for people who squash at the Pro Bowl, he's also been named All-Pro 4 times. Wow. What he's done to the Chargers in his career He's played them 13 times.
Yeah.
Okay?
Owned them.
He scored 13 touchdowns.
Yeah.
He has 10 receiving touchdowns, 2 return touchdowns, and a third return touchdown because last year the Chargers made a great play against the Miami offense, and Tyreek Hill picked up the fumble and ran it 57 yards for a touchdown.
Nuts. Crazy. And that's the issue I think the Patriots have clearly on Sundays. They've got to limit, the really big plays. Big plays, explosive plays, if you're looking at 15 yards or more, for an explosive play, all right, you got to limit those, but you can't give up the big ones. I'm talking about the 40 and 50 plus that go for touchdowns. Somehow you got to figure out a way to keep those guys from doing that because both he and Waddle are eminently capable.
Well, listen, I've seen Tyreek Hill when he had Patrick Mahomes come up to Gillette Stadium and have quite the night. And I'll make a bad play here, a pun here, but you'll know where I'm going. I think it was a Sunday night game up in Foxborough, and Tyreek Hill made his share, especially one time, he made his share of a splash play, if you remember what I'm talking about.
Okay, yeah.
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 A splash play, which I believe that young man, whoever that person was is no longer attending Patriots game in Gillette Stadium. In any case, he is dynamic. He's great after the catch. He can listen, go back to when Tampa and Kansas City played in the Super Bowl. In the regular season that year, Tampa had to make an adjustment. Tyreek Hill caught over 200 yards worth of passes, John, in the first quarter.
Oh, that's insane. That's insane. How do you allow that to happen?
No, I don't know. Well, they didn't allow it to happen when they played in the Super Bowl because, A, Patrick Mahomes was missing his starting offensive tackles.
Yeah.
And they defend Tyreek Hill a much different way.
Yeah.
So, but it just shows you what Tyreek Hill is capable of.
Yeah. And
last year, when they played on a Sunday night, Tua had an awful day. An awful night, I should say. He was under 50%. Tyreek Hill caught 4 passes for 81 yards and a touchdown. But, John, he was targeted 10 times. This time around, he's targeted 15 and caught 11 for 215.
Yeah.
And obviously those big scores. And, he's just, he reminds me in some ways, he's not quite as good as after the catch, but it's like Antonio Brown. As much as Antonio Brown and, whatever's going on with him in the last couple of years, the different time and different conversation, you couldn't deny when he got the football in his hands that he could beat you so many different ways. And that's what Tyreek Hill is able to do, and that's what Bill Belichick is going to have to prevent. Belichick's always had that reputation for taking the team's best weapon out of the mix.
Out of the mix, right.
And I would say right now, because Miami didn't show much of a running game, and listen, Jalen Waddle was obviously a solid receiver, but that was, Tua threw for 466, and Tyreek Hill had almost half of it. So, it's pretty obvious what Belichick and the game plan is going to be defensively.
Yep.
Now, if I'm also Bill Belichick, and fortunately for Patriot fans, I'm not, I'll be curious to test that run defense.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, obviously, Vic Fangio is the defensive coordinator down in Miami. They know how to get up there. But Chargers ran for 234 yards last week. Now, I went back and looked. I'm actually writing on it. And Austin Eckler had 117 of them. But I went back and looked at some of the and the Dolphins last year, John, were 4th against the run. But I like to go back and look at game by game. And I thought it was interesting that there were a couple of times where they gave up 150 yards rushing. Against the Bears, they gave up 252. And I'm like, wow, this is really erratic.
Yeah.
But then when you take a closer look, what the Dolphins struggled with last year were the mobile quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields. That's where those big rushing numbers came from when they played those teams.
Yeah.
So a little up and down, but, I don't know if you're putting Mac Jones in that same category. That being said, I think Bill Belichick and the coaching staff and Bill O'Brien are going to test the interior of that Miami defense because it does two things. it wears down the opposition and it keeps Tua and Tyreek Hill off the field.
Exactly. I think that's definitely mission one for Sunday, if not mission 2, 3, and 4 to go right along with it. Hey, Russell, thank you, my man. It's always great to catch up with you, and let's try it again next week if you're around.
That was very clever of you. We were talking sandwiches, and then you ended with ketchup.
Yeah. Why not? Although, I don't know, we can't put ketchup on a sandwich, can we?
No, you could.
Depends on the sandwich.
Having you on, I always appreciate the nice condiments you have for me.
But I get it. I don't know. Ketchup could go on a hamburger, maybe.
John, I'm not going to top 7-Eleven from next week, so I might as well not even try.
That's right. We have to have a day where we do nothing but witty puns. Okay. We'll try that next week. Thanks, my friend. Talk to you soon.
All right. Talk to you soon.
You got it. The other thing that we have to do, here's the other thing we have to do. We have to have a Russell Baxter drinking game. We have to do it.
There's just so many options.
We have to, because he says okay, like after every other sentence. And, I mean, you could be stone cold bleep-faced if you had a Russell Baxter drinking game and had to do a shot every time he says okay.
Shot, you'd be dead.
Well, we might have to do that. We could even do that live on the air here one of these days, That'd be a way to get the audience involved, wouldn't
it? Get around for the tequila right now.
Oh, my God.
Play back the interview.
What? I love it. John Howard in Stratford, Connecticut says, what a disappointing outcome to a hard-fought game by the Pats. They dug themselves a hole that they aren't at this point in time able to overcome. I like the way Mac pounced back from a horrific start, but I agree with Evan. He needs everything to be perfect in order to make all the throws as he has as a starting quarterback in the NFL needs to make. He's got to have help from the other guys, and it would start, as we suggested, by getting guys like Devontae Parker back on the field, guys like Tyquan Thornton back on the field. And like I said, the best ability for a receiver is availability, and they don't have that right now. That's a huge problem. Aiden in California. John, man, all I can say, I'm encouraged about the performance, not necessarily about how they lost the game, but poise. Mac had to deliver passes with a patchwork OL, and that was impressive. But a loss is still a loss. I'm just glad the offense, for the most part, they're on the same page and growing together forward. Now we're on to Miami, and, John, this is a must-win. You have 2 back-to-back division games. If you have any aspersions for the playoffs, being up 2-0 in the division would be critical. He says, I think we win it in a thriller, 31-27. And that's why I asked the question to start the show. It sounds stupid. It's silly to say that, it's week 2, but this is already a must-win. Look, if you can win in Sunday at home, you get back to even, Steven, 1-1, but you're 1-0 in the division, and then somehow back that up with a road win at a suddenly, Rodgers-less New York Jets team, now you've sent a message not only to the rest of the division, but maybe even to the NFL that this is a team that can actually be in the postseason. So if this week is must win, next week is also critical to letting people know that you're legit. And isn't that what you want from this New England Patriot team? You want people to realize that maybe this is legit, even if technically they're not yet? Devin in Atlanta. You got the... No, he's not there. Okay. I was going to give him the last word, but he's not there. He might be ringing back in. I'll give him another second here. So, at any rate, he says 31-27. I'm going to take the Pats on this one, 27-26. I don't know that they can get to 27. I'll be honest. I think that maybe they could have been around the 24 range or whatever last week had they not thrown the pick 6. They did assist Philadelphia in that regard. I think it's going to be hard to get there, and I'm hoping that the defense can just somehow stuff a sock in the Dolphins' offense and at least slow them down a little bit. And like, has been suggested already, look, you got to figure out a way to take out or tamp down on either Hill, or Waddle, and probably Tyreek Hill, and then you see what kind of a chance you can take with the other one. But you can't let both of those guys run rampant. If they do, there's no way you win the game. All right, Claire, I'm going to give you the last word on the show today. How are you? Is she there? You got her?
Hello.
Hello. There you are.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, John. Hey, Marine.
What's happening? What's going on? And what do you think about what we've talked about today?
Well, as I said in my email, I've kind of committed to an 11-6 win.
Yep,
so
you did.
I've got to be positive.
Yep.
I've got to keep it positive.
Okay.
And I think I tweeted at you or posted at you a 31-27 win for the Patriots.
You did.
Yes.
You did.
Crazy, maybe. But, I've got to keep this hype train going. And I've decided, as I rang in for the reason of, as you were kind of concluding wide in the showdown.
Yep.
I heard you say something, and it made me think about maybe this offense is a grower, not a shower.
That's good. That's actually a pretty good phrase. We might have to steal that one. We'll throw that one out at Evan and see what he thinks. But, honestly.
It's got to develop with Gesicki, and Hunter's doing well already. We've seen Hunter for what he is, and we know kind of what he is, and he's developed in his blocking, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
Gesicki's got to kind of get in there some more. He's got to grow
the
offense and stuff.
I think that's a good way to look at it, and I would tell you that I think that this could be, if any week was going to be, this would be a good week for Mike Gesicki since he'd be going against his old team. So, I'm sure that there'll be something for him to sort of try to lay out there, and I'd be surprised if the Patriots didn't milk him for all of the, Miami intel they could get, from him having been in that locker room and on that sideline a year ago.
Well, if they needed any help, I'd happily interrogate him for, the Patriots if they, need it. So please, pass that on, will you?
I'm quite sure you would love to do that, and I will be happy to pass that on, my friend. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you got it. Very quickly, before we wrap up the show, the Patriots Playbook Fantasy League is underway. The commish, Marine himself, routed the Chowderheads in Week 1. Arm Dussault lost to the Bamboo Shooter. Let's see. I didn't come up with these names, by the way, okay? So I'm just going to read the names, and you can laugh and chuckle and giggle like a 12-year-old if you want to.
Still doing it.
Okay, right? But you are laughing because you even know I'm getting ready to say these two, right? Justin Herbert and Football Orgasms. I mean, come on, guys. Really? Really? We're all freaking 12 around here, aren't we?
Justin Herbert spelt Justin Herbert. I love it.
I know. It's okay.
You're genius.
Jawa Slaves versus ACP, won by ACP. Go Pats versus Date Mike. Date Mike won. And Big Gronkowski's versus On to Cincinnati. And Big Gronkowski's won. So, the Big Gronkowski's, Go Pats, Jawa Slaves, Justin Herbert, Arm Dussault, and the commish, who all won in Week 1. So thank you for those that are playing, and we'll update from time to time throughout the course of the season who's ruling the Patriots Playbook Fantasy League. So I feel like I got to go home and get admonished by my mother now. Our thanks to Armando Salguero, Russell Baxter, Ben Volan, Evan Lazar, and, of course, Marine Matt for putting it all together. Evan will be here tomorrow with the Catch-22 podcast right after Patriots Unfiltered at noon Eastern Time, and Catch-22 then will be on at 2 o'clock tomorrow, and then we'll be back here, same Pat's time, same Pat's channel next Wednesday for our next edition, live edition here of Patriots Playbook. Patriots and the Dolphins get Sunday night on NBC. Wow. Means it's going to be rough on Monday morning, doesn't it? All right. Talk to you next week.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check Patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.